So when it comes to Pokemon, there have been people been upset over like random things. Pokemon Legends ZA. They're fully evolved, but we have a week about the fully evolved Pokemon. Meganium becomes Grass Berry as streamed around Perfume. Emboar becomes Fire and Steel becomes a Seth. And finally, Feraligatr becomes Water Poison represents a Zero Gator trope. How do I know this? I have connections. The problem is, a lot of these so-called leakers have been mostly been wrong about Pokemon Legends Z. I've covered at least over 100 weeks regarding this game, and 99% of them, because of what they sold on Pokemon Day, have been literally false. Like, they have been literally false and wrong. Okay, like, the most common predictions were like these, first one was the, 2024 week of the starters. Well, it's gonna be like Piplup, Torchic, and I think one of the Zen 8 starters. I think and those are gonna be the stars because of some wars or something like. Oh, those are based off important animals to the French region. Oh wait, that never happened. Or the other most likely thing with the Cowl stars. I do think we might get a second set of starters, like in Pokemon X and Y, where we might get the Cowl starters. But a lot of people are saying that we might just be able to catch them straight up in the wild, which would be pretty interesting, and we get new starters instead, which is the starters you get in the game. I am glad that they'll get. I am actually glad they're giving these some more of the more underrated starters a chance like Chikorita or Tepig because a lot of people really don't like both starters. I like Tepig. I like Chikorita. I think Chikorita is cute. I think Tepig is cute, a cute starter, and Meganium is just overlooked because of how poorly Meganium matched up with its region, and Tepig is just overlooked because people just don't like Gen 5 as well. And I do think the other two stars have grown on people a lot, like Superior, especially Samurott, with Husey and Samurott, especially growing on a lot of people as well. But when it comes to Emboar, Emboar has not really gotten a lot of appreciation from Game Freak, and especially the Pokemon community. I think Emboar has to be the most underrated starter in the history of starters. Like, it is probably the most overhated starter. Like, I know some people say Popular is the most overhated starter. No, it's Emboar. That's the real only option for most overhated starter. Like, you have a most popular starter of every region. Gen 1 is Charizard. Gen 2, I think, is Typhlosion. Gen 3 is Swampert because of Mudkip. Gen 4 is Infernape. And of course, Gen 5, I think, is Samurott. Because of Husian Samurott as well. Gen 6 is, of course, Greninja. Gen 7 is, of course, well, it's very, very close. It's between Incineroar and the Decidueye. Very, very close, that one is. Gen 8, I really do not know. Maybe Rillaboom, but I'm not really too sure. I know Rillaboom is like very popular in the competitive scene. I think Gen 9 is Meowscarada. Or it could be Skeletor's, because I know Skeletor's is a water fans, obviously, as well. Well, but other than that, Emboar, I think, is like the very bottom of the starter list. I think Emboar and Atelion and Meganium, I think, are the three least popular starters of all time. Chestnut maybe there too, and Delphox, okay, as well. But when it comes to Pokemon Legends ZA, I am actually glad that Meganium and Emboar were the two of the least popular stars of all time. I've finally gained the chance to shine in the sunlight. I'm glad that the finally, like, Meganium is my least favorite of the three stars, and you know Zoto. But again, Meganium was basically was at an uphill cliff compared to the other two starters. So you know I'm glad that for Meganium fans, they finally get the respect they deserve. Okay. Same thing with Emboar fans. I think Emboar is a very underrated starter, and finally, Emboar has gained the respect it deserves from Game Freak. And of course, Feraligatr is, of course, a very popular starter, so I think Feraligatr is like in the middle of the pack when it comes to starters. Like, the Feraligatr is between the mid. I think the only reason where every starter is popular, I think, is Gen 3, because you know Swampert and its line are popular. You have Blaziken and its line are popular because of competitive. And of course, you have Trico and its line are pretty iconic as well because of, Ash's Trico. And of course, a certain character from Mystery Dungeon is very iconic as well. You know, as well, a highly beloved character. I'm not spoiling anything, but you know, a very beloved middle stage evolution is very popular because of that. I think the other one maybe Gen 9, but I don't think I think Cracker Lava is like the clear least favorite of the three. Um, Gen 7 I think is the one where people most grown on, especially I think at the very beginning it was kind of like Fire and Grass started, everybody loved and nobody liked Popplio, but I think Popplio, its evolution line, have definitely grown on a lot of people. Even myself, like I used to not like Popplio. I used to think Popplio looked ridiculous and looked ugly, but I think everybody realized that Popplio is not an ugly Pokemon. It deserves the same love as all the other starters as well. But I think Gen 5, I think of all generations, the most overhated generation. Which is probably why Gen 5 had very few Megas. I think outside of Audino, because it was like the most popular Gen 5 Pokemon at the time. But Gen 5, I think, has a lot of the most overhated Pokemon of all time. Okay, not just Ember. Okay, there's like 4 or 5 Pokemon, I think, like Krang, I think, is very, very overrated as well. And I think Vanillix is very overhated as well. Stunfisk, especially. Garbodor is very, very overrated. I actually remember when I went to school, someone said Krang was the favorite Pokemon. Yeah, I still find that funny to that day. Krang was someone's favorite Pokemon. Yeah, that there was someone out there that liked Krang. That's pretty funny. And of course, you have many more Pokemon that I think like half of the Pokemon in Gen 5 are overhated as well. And I think it's mostly from the Gen 1ers who grew up with Gen 1, who think Gen 1 is the greatest generation of all time as well, those people. But again, I didn't like Generation 8 of Pokemon. I don't really hate the Generation 8 Pokemon as much as I do now, as I used to, but I think a lot of people's reaction to Gen 5 was my reaction to Generation 8 Pokemon. But yeah, we're done talking about the Pokemon. And finally, Ember gets his just deserved respect.